How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Yes, we're on YouTube. There's like 26 people a night watching us on YouTube. Woo! Well, as it's no surprise, apparently, as we're starting to see, YouTube is taking another leap forward in censorship where apparently anything that has to do with guns, they are not going to have on YouTube. It doesn't matter if you're crazy. It doesn't matter if you're somebody who is associated with ISIS. You may just be a vendor. You may have a group of people who are enthusiasts. Doesn't matter. It's not going to have guns on there. Apparently, from what I heard yesterday. But it goes right along with all the rest of the censorship that you're seeing on Facebook and on Twitter. And not just censorship, lies, pure lies. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to get into a lot of this whole leftist stuff. And if you're a liberal and you're watching this, you will definitely want to tune in, because if you just think you're a liberal and it's, you could just vote for Democrats, or like if you live in Pennsylvania, if you're one of the, and I don't use this word a lot, but if you're one of the idiots that live in Pennsylvania that just voted in this Lamb guy because he sold you on what you're used to hearing from Republicans, you are the problem. Let's get started. Now, I wish I had the capability of taking phone calls tonight, because I would love to hear from some of these people in Pennsylvania. The guy that the Republican candidate, which was not a strong candidate, did not. He bowed out today. And so now they have this Democratic young 33-year-old guy who was a former Marine officer. And let's trust me, folks, just because somebody's a veteran doesn't mean that necessarily they can be trusted. Listen, we have bad people in the military just like we have bad people everywhere. There's doctors that kill people. There's nurses that kill people. There's teachers who molest children. There's cops who murder people. So, these people they're not all good that are in the military and that are veterans. And this guy is a liar. He is any veteran that would run for the Democratic Party right now and I'm not talking about just somebody who's snowed by the Democratic Party and will vote for them, but I'm talking about somebody who runs and associates themselves with a leftist organization is a dangerous individual, especially when he's saying all the right things to get people to vote. But we all know that the reality is, if he's going to be associated with the Democratic Party, he's going to get anything done up there. It's going to be whatever they want, whatever the leftists want. And that's exactly who this guy is. He's a liar. So I'm not really going to cover that so much tonight as I am. I'm going to do a little brief overview of what happened in Austin today. You probably know all about it. I've been getting information about this all day, starting at 6 o'clock this morning, and so one of the reasons why, every night there's a reason why I start late. Tonight the reason is because I was on LinkedIn earlier doing my research for the show for tonight, and I came upon an article about the organizers of this Saturday, the march that's going to be the follow-on to the school walkout that they had last week. And it's a march for our lives is what they call it. Obviously, it's not a march for our freedoms, because the reality is this is an attempt to get rid of or abolish or demean or break down the Second Amendment. That's what this is. So don't think that that this is a march for anybody's lives. As I pointed out yesterday, and it's funny, I talk to people in the media all the time, and they're always saying that, I talked to somebody today, I'm not going to say where, but I was like, it's very strange, this Parkland school, how everybody was just readily prepared to be in the media, that even the kid that's conservative that everybody likes somehow has an app already that he's touting all over TV. I find that all of it, every single bit of it, very disturbing and largely grotesque. But it is extremely bothersome because, well, when I told this guy in the media, that's what I was trying to say. I said, I'm very bothered by all this. I think there should be more stories on this because, these kids, it's like they went from 0 to 100 in the media and they never skipped a beat. They already had, it's like everything was already ready for them. Just think about, since this school shooting, right? When have you ever heard of this? Since the school shooting, there has been at least 3 protests around the country, big ones on the East Coast. That includes D.C., New Jersey, and Florida that these people attended. There was a school walkout where they estimate over 1 million students across the country walked out of their classrooms. There is an upcoming march on the 24th in Washington, D.C., where they're all going to be. All these kids are jet setting all over the place. And apparently they're expecting 500,000 people there. And then there's going to be a follow-on one in April 20th, I believe, which I'm really interested about these numbers, that the 20th, that they keep doing stuff on the 20th. So when I'm reading this article, and I'm going to get back to what happened in Austin here in a little bit. I don't know how I jumped over to this subject so fast, but when I started looking through this article, and it's on Vox, which I don't know enough about Vox to tell you if it's left-leaning or not. So as I'm reading through this, they're talking about this as though it's some kind of magnificent, protest that's coming up, and as though the walkout in school was amazing. And by the way, on April 20th, it's not another protest; it's another school walkout, national school walkout. I challenge, and I'm going to tweet this tonight. I challenge the president to get on his Secretary of Education for the Department of Education and stop these walkouts. I don't think that they're legal from what I've seen, and I don't think that the people that are the majority of kids that are being involved with this understand the reality of what they're doing. And I think politics should be out of the schools. It should not. Right now, it's absolutely inundated. Politics are inundated in schools. I've heard about when Barack Obama was president, somebody was telling me they went into their kid's classroom and they had two huge cutouts of this is during the election, right? They were trying to teach about politics and about the election process. They had a picture of Donald Trump and two life-size cutouts of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I mean, that says it all right there. So we are looking at, and we've all known this, and it's just a matter of time before we accept it, that this is a big deal. Now I know how I got over on the subject. I'm sorry I'm bouncing around by this, but I'm kind of in awe of what I've discovered here today. So when I told this individual in the media, and I said that I'm disturbed by these students, how there's no way that they were responsible for coordinating this stuff around the country. There's no way that they were involved or responsible for funding all these things that went on around the country. There's no way that they are speaking the same exact narratives everywhere they go without outside help. And even the kid who has this app already, that's this conservative guy from the same school, do you think he just did that? Just did it just like that? I don't know if he had it before, but the whole thing is disturbing. And anyway, this journalist says, well, I mean, look, we cannot fault the kids. I mean, they're just really smart. That school's got a lot of really smart people in it. How do we know that? And regardless, I grew up around smart people, not necessarily myself included, but I grew up around smart people. And I know a lot of them whose parents died or brother died or, whatever. And it was incredibly traumatic. I'm not going to go into detail, but as a young kid, I remember when a good friend of mine was hit by a car and killed. The whole school was in shock. I mean, it was like this palpable thing that you could feel for a long time. When you see death up close, and I've seen plenty of it, it is it's a shock. Even though we're all born and 100% of us will die, it's still a shock that person will never be here again. And as I've said since the day that this stuff happened, I've seen zero remorse from these people. It is though they are robots. So when I started looking at this march that's coming up, I started looking at the organizers, and in this, of course, on this Vox, somebody just said that Vox is a communist, left-leaning online publication. Well, I don't doubt that the way this is written. But it says survivors of the school shooting in Parkland organized the March for Our Lives in D.C. on March 24th. I don't believe that for a second. You're going to take kids who've never done anything and that are 17 years old, and all of a sudden they're going to be they're going to understand how to get permits, how to get donations, how to work with law enforcement and do security, and also do all the news hits, and to get all the publications out there, get all the entertainment promoted and booked, and then organize the whole thing. And they're going to be able to do that since Valentine's Day. They learned it and did it all since Valentine's Day. No way. There's no way. So it says they organized the March for Our Lives in D.C. on March 24th with the support of Every Town for Gun Safety, a gun law reform advocacy group. Now, I haven't even looked into them yet. We need to look into them. And let me just copy something real quick so I can send this to my researcher here. Hold on one second. But what I did find is that, so I'm finding out now that Vox is a Soros-owned company. So that's very interesting that we find that out. Thank you, researcher. And so that makes sense the way this is written. But what hit me first as I'm reading through this is that a group called Indivisible is responsible for the it's a progressive organizing group founded after the 2016 election, is backing the April 20th walkout. Now, I'm sure they have something to do with the March 24th upcoming protest, but this is what hit me, okay? We're pretty sure, all of us around this country that have a brain are pretty sure that those that organize, and the real reason behind the push and the speedy push of all this stuff, including the walkout that already happened, is because leftists, I deem them communists, you can call them globalists, some people call them socialists or progressive socialists or just progressives. They've been called the same throughout history since communism came into play. They always find words to hide. It's a very nefarious, listen, I'm going to use the word correctly. I use this word a lot, but it's a very nefarious, sneaky ideology. It's not, bold and in your face like Islam. Communism is by nature a subversive group. So what we see here, I'm reading a lot of your stuff while I'm going, because a lot of you have done a lot of great research on all this stuff. So a lot of you know who these people are. So when I started looking into this Indivisible group, I found it very interesting because I'm almost positive they're behind a lot of this stuff. And it started during the 2016 election. When I started looking into it and I had my researchers go through it, here's what I found. Let me bring some of this up here. Let's see here. It's a progressive organization founded after 2016 election, as I said. Their domain is registered privately through a company called TUCOWS. Two Cows, I don't know how you say that, but headquartered in Toronto, of all places, which is very interesting. They seem to be a conglomerate of all left-wing groups, but mainly focused on politics at the local level. Looks like it is probably Soros-owned as well. They're coordinating an anti-Trump march, or anti-Trump tax march in D.C. on April 15th. So they're all over the place, right? They're not just involved with organizing a school walkout on April 20th. They're also involved with an anti-Trump tax march and with all things leftist. So right there, the Department of Education should put a stop to this. Nobody should be walking out any more of our schools, and no one should be involved with a political ideology one way or the other while they're in school. And I'll even go as far to say that the president needs to step up and start a push to outlaw communism and socialism in this country. We are not a socialist country. Our Constitution is not a socialist constitution. We are not a communist country. We don't have communism in our Constitution. And those things are direct threats to our way of life. And that is why it should be outlawed. And I cannot for the life of me understand why no one has done this yet. We now have proof that, and I haven't even looked at the past one yet because I don't have access anymore since I left the FBI. I have to have my researchers do some major research on this. I don't know exactly who was involved with the last school walkout, but I can guarantee you it was a lot of the same people. I guarantee you that. And now that we know that this group is involved in the April 20th walkout of schools, I mean, they say it themselves, it should stop. We should not allow this to happen. So really the people should get behind this, and we should start tweeting out some stuff and putting CQRF on it and letting the president know that this is a big problem. That politics are now getting into the point where, let me tell you something, folks. If you have a school day where it's interrupted by snow, right? You have a certain amount of those that are allotted, but you're going to make those days up. If something happens where they have to shut the school down for a period of time, they're going to make those days up, right? So you're going to tell me that Mother Nature causes something to happen. You're going to have to make those days up, but yet they're going to allow outside forces to come in and disrupt the education of our students, of our young people who keep continuously bragging that they're the future and they own this country. Well, they don't own it. I got news for them. And if they're going to be the future of our country, we shouldn't be allowing them to take days off to listen to leftists in this country. There's nothing about safe schools involved in this. None of these people have offered any real suggestions on how to make the school safer. So let's look at these people a little bit more. So another thing about this TUCOW, TUCOW, I don't know if that's exactly if I'm saying that right. The thing about that company is that they're just a host. So anyone who wants to hide can go through them. See, that's the way these people work. David Brock has a lot of these companies. George Soros, the Clintons, Clintons call them nonprofits. But that's the way these people work. Now, one of the people that is involved with this is the domain, at least, is registered to Diane Stewart, and she is involved with political grassroots campaigns. She targets low-income and at-risk populations like immigrants, go figure. She worked under Texas Governor Ann Richards and Texas Council on Workforce and Economic Competitiveness. See, I told you, Texas. How many times have I told you that they're coming after you? They're coming after you, Texas, just like they went after Florida, Colorado, California. Of course, Chicago's been gone for a long time. New York, Texas, they're coming for you. You better get ready for a fight, I'm telling you. Because the way you see them talking about California succeeding from the country, if you think that's just California, you are kidding yourself. Look, it's time to take the dip out, put the beer down, and start realizing that you are being subverted all over this country. Especially in Texas. They want Texas so bad, it just kills them because they know Texas is a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. They know that Texas literally could probably defend itself against our country going against it. So you should and you better start realizing this. It's the same thing across other places around the country. It's not just there. Okay, so she founded Texas Center for Public Policy Priorities, another social justice warrior person who has got their feet in all this stuff. She's not remember, she's a soldier, right? She's not the funder. She's not necessarily a coordinator of things. She's a soldier. They need this done. She goes out and does it. These people learn how the system works, and they just repeat it over and over and over again. That's how this stuff works. She's a chair for the Center of Effective Government with some union leaders and seems to have ties to Chicago. So Another founding member of Indivisible, remember that's the group that's sponsoring not only the next march or walkout in schools on April 20th, they're also involved in protests against Trump and all assets, including a big demonstration in Washington, D.C. on April 15th about the Trump tax plan, which seems to not be affecting anybody bad, but they're still going to protest it. So another one of the founding members of this company, Indivisible, is Matt Triotti, I believe is how you say his name. He's an officer in SEIU. Now, a lot of people may know about SEIU or they may not know about SEIU, but it is a union for workers, and it's basically a democratic, as my researcher put it, paramilitary force. It's Traldi. Okay, I was saying Triotti. It's Traldi. So let me go back up here. And they've carried out a lot of hits. They do a lot of protesting. And so I pulled up some stuff just to help you understand a little bit about who they are. Let me pull it up here. Where'd it go? Here it is. Okay, so... and there's familiar names that are associated with it. Andy Stern was big in the campaign last year. A lot of these people throw their money at the Clintons, but SEIU was the Service Employees International Union, one of the largest labor unions in the United States and Canada. It is infamous for its controversial agenda and political activism. Now, remember, folks, this is just like the people in schools. Okay, they say the march in schools is for to save lives and to make schools safer. So far, we've seen nothing about that. It's all about the Second Amendment and about belittling the NRA. When we look at SEIU, which is Service Employees International Union, we don't see anything necessarily about service employees and making sure they have safe places to work. It goes straight into political activism, and it's not across the board. The union was created to represent building service trades, including janitors, security officers, and food service workers, but it eventually expanded into healthcare and government work sectors. Interesting, because both of those places, especially the government work sector, is a way for them to control a lot of things that happen in government, in and around government, without having to be in government. This expansion has made SEIU one of the most prominent players in left-wing politics and the broader progressive movement. And this is nothing new. Saul Alinsky, all these far left, leftist, communist activists have been a part of the unions for the longest time. And so I don't really have to say much more about that except for the fact that they were founded. Where would you guess that SEIU was founded? They're a left-leaning organization, one of the biggest leftist power brokers in the country. Where do you think they were founded in the United States? Maybe Chicago? Yes, that's correct. In 1921. So it just goes to show you that, as Michael Jack had come on here before and talked about how this stuff goes all the way back to the early 1900s, he's absolutely right. So that's enough about them. I don't really have to cover anything about them, but except for the fact that you're starting to see these massive ties. It's not these students from a school where there was a shooting. We're starting to see where we have not just some theory, but real evidence, because the people here from Indivisible are actually saying that they're involved with the April 20th walkout of school. So we know that they're probably involved with the rest of these things. We know that the people that are involved with Indivisible are involved with SEIU. We know that they're involved with Texas politics. We know that they have put out a practical guide for resisting the Trump agenda. That's a paper that they put out. We know that that Obama-linked activists have training manual to protest Trump. This is another indivisible publication. So we see you don't have to guess at this stuff anymore. Do you people get this? Do you understand I'm trying to see how many people I got here on Twitter and on Facebook. Do you all understand this? If you're liberal and you're watching this show, do you get it? If you live in Pennsylvania and you're one of the knuckleheads that voted for this guy Lamb, are you starting to see a picture here? Because the picture is not about conservative and liberal. The picture that you should be seeing is that it is a lie. And it is a lie to control you. It's a lie to basically degrade those who seek realistic and effective solutions to problems, to degrade their ability to do stuff and degrade the Constitution so that the left can grow stronger. It's not about liberal and conservative. It's about overthrowing the Constitution. And I've got all these people that were on Facebook and Twitter throughout the last 2 weeks when I was saying this stuff, and they come on and they say, obviously, you have no idea what communism is all about. You're an idiot. You don't know anything about these students and what they've been through, their children. Yeah, no, not so much. Not so much. They're not so much children as they are young adult robots. It's not. It is completely about whether you call it communism or globalism or progressivism. Nonetheless, it is a ideology that seeks to degrade the Constitution, and the only reason why people would do that is because, one, they believe in the lie of a utopia that is always promised by communism and dictators and fascists. Yeah, that's right. The idiots that go around like Antifa accusing other people of fascists are closer to fascist beliefs than anybody else in this country. So before you call me an idiot, you have to go out and do this research. It's there right in front of you. They're even telling us that they're involved with it. It's not these students putting stuff together. It's just, I've seen how much goes into the planning of these things. It's massive, especially when it's in Washington, D.C. So, folks, these people like David Hogg, stop looking at them as children and giving them the benefit of a doubt as though they're doing something honorable. And stop looking at them as though these poor children, they're just being used. They're not being used. They're active participants in this. Don't you see that? Look, it's no different than if you have 5-year-olds and then you have a 10-year-old. And the 10-year-old's been through a little bit more life. And everybody wants cookies. And so the 10-year-old tells the 5-year-olds, hey, I know how we can do this, okay? You guys are less likely to get in trouble than I am. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to distract mom, and you guys go in there and sneak out some cookies, okay? That's what we're going to do. I'm going to fill mom with all this stuff and talk to her about this or talk to her about I'm going to have a boo-boo on my knee or whatever, but I know what's going on. You guys go get the cookies. I'll handle the rest. There's nothing different here. Although these are 5-year-old children that are trying to make a decision, it's the same thing here. You got these experienced people, like these people from Indivisible that I've gone through and talked about, and they are the ones that are leading, organizing, financing, promoting, getting the permits for, recruiting celebrities to come and partake in this stuff. They've got a whole system worked out. It's as big as our government, if not bigger. These students from Parkland are willing participants in this game. They're getting fame. I imagine they're getting money. They're going to come out of this thing rich. I can guarantee it. And they're being utilized by these people. And if you don't see this, you're crazy. If you work for Facebook or you work for Twitter or YouTube, you should start to realize you are also being used. You're being lied to. And again, forget about liberal and conservative. Forget about it. Listen to me when I tell you this. This country is being subverted. You're being told you should be angry because you're black. You're being told that you are gay and you don't get enough, you don't get the rights and you're oppressed. You're being told that you're a woman and you get paid less. None of that is true. There may be instances where in some company a woman doesn't get paid as much for some strange reason. I don't know why they had set themselves up for an arrest or for a lawsuit like that. There may be an incident where somebody discriminates against somebody because of the color of their skin. There may be instances where somebody that's gay gets beat up for being gay. I'm not doubting that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't stop going after people who do those criminal acts. But you live in a free country. I know black people, and I hate using the term black and white, but that's what everybody's doing. I know people with dark skin that fly jet fighters faster than the speed of sound. I know a neurosurgeon that's got dark skin, and he's an amazingly charismatic guy and a very successful neurosurgeon. I know women that are neurosurgeons. I know women that are cops, that are fighter pilots. Evidently now there's women in infantry, although I don't necessarily agree with that. But there are women that do everything that men can do. And if I was a woman, I'd be very insulted when they take a transgender woman and call it's a guy who gets a medical operation, series of operations, so that he looks like a woman. I don't care how he feels or how he identifies. He's still a man, and their DNA is a man. And if I was a woman, I would be completely insulted by that. But the fact is, this separation, this division that you see in the country is all a part of the same thing. These young people and the way they're being used and the willing participants that they are, it's all the same thing. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and the way that they censor conservatives and censor people, they're not, look, you may think that you're doing the right thing and saying, I agree with Facebook's policy. I don't think there should be hate speech. What do you define as hate speech? What you don't agree with? There's a difference between somebody saying that somebody who's gay should be beat up or killed versus somebody who says, my religion believes that a man and a woman should be married, and that's the only thing that should be called marriage. You can call it civil union, you can call it whatever. Me, quite frankly, I don't care. It doesn't matter. As long as the churches, if they feel a certain way, then that's the way they should stick. And I know what the Bible says, and that's the way people should be. And I don't care about civil unions. I don't have a problem with it. If people want to call it marriage, I don't have a problem with it. We got bigger things to worry about in this country. But the problem is, it's not even really gay marriage that's a problem. It's the focus on the problem. That's the big thing. We get focused on these problems. They just keep it going, and they keep it going. I have amazing friends who are gay. I have amazing friends who are black. I have amazing friends who are women and men. And none of those people, none of them project the thing that everybody else says you should be angry or you should be worried about. I have friends that are gay. You wouldn't even know it unless they told you. That's because it's not who they are. It's their sexuality. I have friends who are black, and if you were talking to them and weren't looking at their face, you wouldn't know whether they're black or white or Asian, because it's just their skin color. It's not, has nothing to do with their morals and ethics and how they think a problem through. I have friends that are women that are the same way. I grew up around women. I know for a fact, as I was talking to somebody today, if you want to play wrestle with a woman or girls when you're younger, who's going to get hurt, it's always going to be the guy. We always get kicked between the legs or smacked in the face or something because we're not going full bore. But let me tell you, being in the FBI Academy, I can't say her last name, but Hannah, was like a rabid dog when we fought, because we always box, and the men box the women. Women can rise to the occasion. It's when they're told all these lies, and that's what's happening here. If you work for Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, if somebody disagrees with you or somebody says something that you don't agree with, that's not a reason to censor somebody. That's not considered hate speech. It's not because people hate somebody. It's because they see things differently. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But that's the great thing about living in a free country. And there's a big difference between saying, I hate you, boom, or I hate you, and pow, than saying, I don't like you, or I disagree with you. That's what makes the country great. I don't want to take the freedoms away from anyone. Gay, straight, black, white, Asian, male, female, transgender. Look, you could be transgender. I support your rights. You should be able to own a gun if you're mentally stable enough. Freedom of speech, I agree with it. All the other rights out there. The fact is, what is happening right now with these school kids and with all these people that are working in behind this, and with the known participants and the unknown participants, or the unknowing participants, like just happened in Pennsylvania. People go out and vote for somebody who tells them what they want to hear. They're not even looking at the party, not looking at the leftists in the party. What is going on here with the people at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube? Facebook, who talks about, oh, honorable this and can't have hate speech, yet they spy on the people that subscribe and follow their guidelines. They're the ones who don't follow guidelines. They're the ones that spy on us. It's all over the news. I believe Mark Zuckerberg should step down as CEO and actually should cash in all his stocks and go away from Facebook. I believe another billionaire out there should start something else like Facebook. Where are those two twins that started it with Zuckerberg? Why aren't they out there starting something again, except doing it right? Although I don't know anything about them, but that's what we need. But look, I digress. If you work for Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, you may be a willing or unwilling participant, but you need to know the reality of what's going on here. It's not about liberal, conservative, hate speech, gay, straight, black, white, kids that were in a school where shootings happened, they're organizing protests. It's not about any of that. What's going on here is a direct attack on our way of life, and you better understand this. If you're conservative, you better start reaching out to your liberal friends and saying, listen, we need to talk about something. And it's not about school violence. It's not about whether or not somebody should be married or if they're gay. It's not about any of that. We need to sit down and we need to start discussing as a citizenry about how our country is being subverted, and all these issues that are so simple to fix are being spun up. And we're divided, and we better fix it. That's what this comes down to. You're a willing or unwilling participant. You're censoring people, and you're one of these people who looks on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or you're one of these people who stand up for politicians that you don't even know anything about. You better stop and take a look at the reality of what's happening. If you're a veteran, like my former friend, who was a Force Recon, was my honor man in my Army Ranger class, went off the freaking deep end and now says we need to change the Second Amendment. A man who was a man, I don't know if he's a man anymore, but he supported and defended the Constitution, took an oath to that, and the first thing he wants to go after is changing that. He better get a clue. Josh, I doubt you're watching this because I blocked you off of Facebook, but you better get a clue. Because the fact is, that which you swore an oath to support and defend, you yourself, knowingly or unknowingly, are helping these subversives go after and change our Constitution, and it's going to do nothing to make schools safer. As you've seen, since this happened on Valentine's Day, I know of at least one school. I think there's been 2 school shootings, one that I know of. And you know what stopped it? Was a good guy with a gun responding in the school. But here's the reality. It was a failed response. The cop did a great job. But that guy with the gun should never have gotten in that school. There should be nobody. Look, if it's a problem, why aren't we getting rid of backpacks? Why do we allow people with backpacks to come into the school? Why don't they have metal detectors? Look, I would say get rid of the football program. I know that's going to piss a lot of people off. Get rid of sports, all the games and the money they put into that just for a year. Take that money, all extracurricular activities for a year, get rid of it. And just have people learn. Take that money that would normally be put towards that stuff and buy yourself some metal detectors. Get some people to do some threat assessments. Whatever it takes. They've done nothing. These school shooters, that cop responded honorably, but the reality is the shooter was allowed to get into the school with a gun. In Florida, they've already had several people with knives arrested. They had a kid that was threatening somebody online, and a sheriff's deputy that was asleep at the same school where a shooting happened in February 14th, I believe it was. So here's the nitty-gritty about all this. You all need to get on board and stop with this liberal, conservative, gay, straight, black, white, whatever. And everybody needs to start having a conversation together about the fact that your rights are being targeted, that your Constitution is being targeted, that your very way of life that you are going to hand to your children is being targeted. That very thing that the Founding Fathers fought to escape is being allowed to root itself into this country because of you and because of your inaction and because of your narcissistic, individual, self-indulged personas that we've all taken, that we don't even try to sit down with each other and understand who the real enemy is here. It is unbelievable when I talk to people who used to be communists and that saw the light, what they say is going on. It's unbelievable when I talk to people who are from communist countries and what they say. Here's something interesting. Somebody just let me know that I had 290 people watching on Twitter, and then they cut it, and in 60 seconds I lost 250 viewers. See, that's what I'm talking about. So Twitter, you cannot justify that, because I have said nothing about threatening people. I've said nothing degrading to people. There's been no hate speech on this show. I've shown no guns. I've not talked about tactics or anything like that. But yet, when I start, and there's no way that we can say that this doesn't happen now. I had almost 300 people watching on Twitter, and within 60 seconds, they're gone. That's called censorship, and the reason it's being censored is because we have leftists that own Silicon Valley. We have leftists that are involved with all these different platforms. They all come from Ivy League schools. They've all been inundated, and they've all been indoctrinated with the leftist ideology. They are willing participants. So I'll say this. You want to cut my feed. Let's just be honest here, okay? Our biggest enemy in this country is here. It's not over there. It's not. Listen, the same enemy that's here is over there. There's no doubt about it. But like Australia, like Spain, like France, like England, all the major players, our enemy is here. They're in here. The money is flowing all over. It's not just George Soros. George Soros is one of the players. He's the one that people love to hate. I mean, look, there's this Tom Steyer weirdo that has these commercials. I don't know if you've seen these commercials. They're the goofiest freaking commercials that you'll see on TV, where he's talking about how Trump has done all these different things. The guy's a weirdo. He's a billionaire. He's another funder of all these things. There's a whole list of people. There was if you look at his Wikipedia page in 2000 and I don't know when it was 2012. Steyer hosted a fundraiser at his home, and there were along with 15 other top donors to the Democratic Party. We're all involved in this. Those people are all involved in the money all around the globe. They want that. They don't want you to have your way of life here. It's very similar to the Matrix, except we're not dealing with machines and we're not batteries. We're dealing with very, very wealthy people that want to get more wealthy and want to get more powerful, and we are their slaves. That's what's happening. So Twitter, and those that are willing participants, Facebook, and those that are willing participants, all censoring YouTube the same way. You can censor me all you want. Take me off. I won't be on. Kill my online career. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But here's what's happening. There's enough people that are seeing what's going on. You want to talk about a revolution? It's not a revolution. It's a revolvolution. We're going to go back to the way it was. And enough people have seen this to where it's going to grow bigger and bigger. Censor me all you want. You can't stop the truth. The truth will always be revealed. Always. And why is that the case? Because the God that created all the universe, that created everything, the one that thought start and the universe started, the one that breathed life in the atom, the one that breathed life into you, the one that gave everybody the limited amount of knowledge that we have here. The God that created all that is in charge of the truth. And you think you're going to stop that? Look, it took thousands of years before for us to get past monarchies and tyrannical governments, but it happened. It took thousands of years for the lineage of Jesus to happen, so he could be born and come into this country, into this world, and literally die and pay the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate sin sacrifice for our sins. The truth will not be held back. It will eventually go forward, but always, just like Satan is always at our heels, he is also at the heels of the truth, constantly with a shovel trying to cover it up. Let me read this here real quick. So, let me just say this real quick. I'll go ahead and go through the rest of what I was going to talk about, because it's all associated with it. So, I'll finish up with the with Austin bombing, but I just want to show you something real quick. If you don't think this country is being led by a psychopathic narcissist, well, let's just look at the guy who was vice president. All right, he was second. He could have been in charge of this country had something happened to Barack Obama. Let's listen first of all to Joe Biden, what he said today. Stand by.
And then said, I didn't make a mistake, but the leader said, I can.
Okay.
When a guy who ended up becoming our national leader said, I can grab a woman anywhere and she likes it, and then said, I didn't make a mistake, but they asked me, would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him. Well, I've been in a lot of locker rooms my whole life, a pretty damn good athlete. Any guy who talked that way was usually the fattest, ugliest SOB in the room. Things are starting to change. Things are starting to change.
Okay.
High-level politics.
Now, let's just look at this. This is great. Listen closely, because this is the same Joe Biden.
Spread your legs, you're going to be...
Spread your legs.
Drop your hands. You say that to somebody in North Dakota, they think it's a frisk. Drop your hands to the side, you know.
Spread your legs and drop your hands to the side. I hope they don't pull me for this, because I don't know who made
well
this.
and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you're about to enter, so help you God. I have no doubt about it. I'm heading up to Capitol Hill now to swear in new members and old members of the United States Senate. And as Vice President, it's one of the great opportunities I have. I loved the United States Senate. It was a collegial place. as many friends in the Republican Party as the Democratic Party. And today is a really special day.
Thanks to give out here. First and foremost to my perfect wife, Stephanie, my wonderful son, Will, and my daughter, Ava, already mentioned.
Taking a selfie with Black Tiger in New York.
Hey, Charlie, give him that good smile.
Bears. I need a hug, kid. Come on. I need a hug. God love you.
It's your reputation.
I'm
good.
kind of tough. 15.
Remember, no serious guys in your 30s.
I like that.
That's it.
What I like most is getting to see their children and their parents, particularly their moms and dads. When I reenact the swearing in the old Senate chamber, where their whole families are able to be there and stand with them as I reenact the swearing in. It's a moment of real joy. It has nothing to do with Republican and Democrat. It has to do with having the opportunity to actually join the single most important legislative body in the world. And it is an enormous honor. I served there for a long time, and I consider myself a Senate man. And, so it's good.
This guy's creepy, man.
And it's good to be able to perform this function.
Yeah, creepy. Look, folks, the fact is this country is led by narcissistic, somewhat psychopathic people like Joe Biden, who goes into a room and insults the president of the United States because he said something. And look, I've been in just as many, if not more, locker rooms than Joe Biden. And I'm here to tell you, I hate, my mom normally watches this show. Hate to tell you, guys say stuff like that all the time. Okay. It's pretty common, and I'm even going to go so far as to say that it's not uncommon for women to say a lot of the same things. I know because I've dated girls and grew up in a home full of women. Okay, it's not uncommon. And there's a difference between joking around with banter and publicly being so bold as to touch other people's women. There's a report out, it's not my words, that the Secret Service canceled several dinners because they didn't want to bring their wives and their girlfriends around Joe Biden. Not my words. So, folks, this is, oh, look, my Twitter numbers just went back up all of a sudden. How about that? Maybe somebody at Twitter has some morals out there and they realize the fact that censoring people that are trying to give a good and truthful message is un-American, for one, and a lie. Look, here, I know these companies, these social media companies, it's business. I know, I get it, okay? I get it. But the fact is, I've seen more death on Twitter and YouTube. I've seen more terrorists spreading propaganda. I've seen more communists doing their bidding and more absolutely grotesque, vocal nonsense from people who consider themselves leftists or liberals, attacking other people, insulting women, using, as we've seen on Twitter several times, people using names such as... they're pornographic names that include children, and I don't see those people getting blocked at all by Twitter. Facebook, how many murders have they allowed to happen, including people being held against their will and tortured, and Facebook didn't even pull down the live feed? How many over the past month? First, there on Facebook, there was a questionnaire that went out where they were asking if somebody who is older is basically hitting on somebody who's underage on Facebook, would that bother you? That was literally one of the questions. And then somebody at Facebook started redirecting certain links on Facebook to child porn sites. That doesn't happen by accident twice. Just like Jeff Zuckerberg thinks that we're going to believe that they didn't know what Cambridge Analytica were doing, that it was a surprise to them. But yet, I have a friend, one of the people who watches this show, that puts on there a year ago that she couldn't understand why Uma Abedin would marry Anthony Weiner because, in her words, isn't he a Jew? Because Uma Abedin is a Muslim. And she said, isn't that against their policy? A year later, she gets locked out of her Facebook account for 24 hours because of that comment. So you're telling me, Facebook, that you can go back and you can find a comment that was not bad to begin with, but something that you deemed bad a year later. But yet that was one individual. But yet you don't know what Cambridge Analytica is doing with our information? We're supposed to believe that, Zuckerberg? We see constantly. I talked to the woman who does Colonel Alan West's website and in charge of his Facebook. Have you noticed that Alan West isn't all over Facebook? I used to be inundated by his stuff. They lost a tremendous amount of revenue because they've been censored. That's right. All the stuff that we fought against in the 60s is happening now, except it's happening to conservatives. And if you're liberal and you think it's not going to happen to you, because I can guarantee you, folks, liberal or conservative, one thing that binds us all is we like to do what we want when we want to do it. So if you think that you're liberal and you're going to allow a socialist / communist / globalist entity to come in and take over, and your rights as you know it are going to remain the same, you are freaking kidding yourself. Your life is going to change. And it's not going to get better. That's the truth. History has never had an example where communism came into a country and it got better. Never. Never once. And the utopia that they preach has never come about in history. There's never been a tyrannical government that was all-knowing, all-caring, and took care of everyone. That just does not happen. It doesn't happen. One last thing I'll say about the Boston, or excuse me, I keep saying Boston, about the Austin bombing suspect. It's very odd. I've been hearing them say, talk about how he's Christian and this and that, but yet I've been seeing other reports that he's a Scientologist. So I don't know. I don't know what the reality is with this. Again, the media is going to skew things. The media also censors. The media also changes things. So we'll see what's going to come out of that. I can't speculate about this guy. I don't know enough. But what I can tell people is don't pick up packages that are on your doorstep that you didn't order. And if you're walking down the road and you see a string or what looks like a thread or a line going across, don't touch it. Call cops. We don't know what this guy put out before he ended up getting killed. Again, good guys with guns chasing a bad person. Let's go to the Truth Zone. Hey, we got 131 people. Right now, before we go anywhere, listen. Go get this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I'm going to be doing some specials. I'm not going to say anything about it, but you're going to hear more about this book. It's going to be coming online. All this stuff I'm talking about, if you want to protect yourself and increase your awareness, go get this book. Once you get it, and if you have bought it, go give a review for it on Amazon. You can do it on Barnes & Noble, too, if you bought it there. Just go give it a review. Good grief. It's not like I'm asking you to go break the bank. Right now it's $13. $13 is going to change your life. Let's go to the Truth Zone. But first, let's do a little commercial for it. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. This has been my drink for the night. Kombucha. It's my new thing. And coffee. Although I'm out of both. All right, folks. Here's another interesting thing. My numbers, ever since I said that, have been the exact same on Facebook and on Twitter. That is really strange. They're going down at the same time. The same numbers. So strange. Folks, here's the deal. I don't just do this show to make myself feel good. I don't get paid for this show. There's a GoFundMe address that keeps going across the bottom of the screen. But this is one of the few places that you're going to get the truth. I say this every night. That's why I do this little ending with the music, so I can kind of pump you up as I go out. I've given a lot of myself to do this nightly. I know some people think it's ridiculous. I've had fellow SEALs, they don't like it. I'm not really concerned about that. The truth has to get out some way. And I'm called to continue serving. And when I tell you these things, when I come on here, it is for a reason. The numbers are growing. People are starting to understand. The book has sold. It's still a bestseller on Amazon's bestseller list. Why? Because it's the truth. This show is about empowering people, about giving you understanding and a behind-the-scenes look at what reality is, where you have all these other headlines and all these other salacious things that try to lead you away from the truth. This show is the one thing that will lead you back to the truth. Don't think because I was on CNN, because I appeared on Fox, that I ever compromised what I knew was the truth. And I never talk about what I feel when I'm on television or the radio. I talk about what I know is the truth. That's why I don't lose debates. And I'll continue to do that. It's my mission now. I was a SEAL. I was a cop before that. I was a SEAL. I've done all these different things. And each time I was called to those, I went all the way and did the best of my ability until I was called to the next place. Sometimes I wish I would have stayed there longer. But regardless, it brought me here to where I am now. And I'm giving this the same amount of effort that I gave those other things. What I ask is that you stand with me, because now, here's the truth, folks. The front line isn't in Iraq or Afghanistan. The front line isn't with Russia. The front line is here. And you are a combatant. And if you think because you're liberal and you vote for Democrats that it's going to be okay, you're wrong. If you're Republican, or you subscribe to the Republican Party, and you think because you voted this guy or that woman in that it's going to be okay, you're wrong. It's up to you, the citizenry of this country, to come together, to stand together, to unify, and to be one. If we're not unified, we will fall, and we are falling. I'm Jonathan Gillum. That's my buddy Rico. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow. One thing I'm going to say real quick, folks. This Christopher Glover guy comes on here and says that when I talk about Jesus that I sound stupid. I will never stop talking about Jesus. And if you think I'm stupid because of that, I can guarantee you I'll be the one that's on the winning side of that argument in the end. I'm Jonathan Gillum. The truth has arrived. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
Ah!